ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause as we kick off one of the final panels of the session, the investment ecosystem of the future, the opportunity for entrepreneurs and pioneers. These two speakers are going to be giving their thought leadership, their insight of what they're working on. So please give a warm welcome first to Luz Gonzalez. She's the co-founder of the Pretty Busy Club. Welcome, welcome, welcome to DR Tech Summit. And then Lise, next, we have the wonderful Sydney Paul. She's the business marketing manager from Virgin Islands Tech Park. She's also an enabler and a galvanizer. She brought me out to VI a couple years back. It was an amazing and inspiring program. It's a pleasure to have both of you on this panel. Welcome to DR Tech Summit.
Thank you, Christine.
All right, so I know we're going to kick off on the panel, but usually instead of introducing you guys and reading your bios, I always like telling people, introduce yourself, tell us how you show up in this world. So I'm going to start with Luz. Go ahead, and then I'll pass it over to Sydney. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you guys and to give a little bit of our experience in this panel. Well, I started out in the Dominican ecosystem as part of different initiatives that helped the entrepreneurs to scale their businesses and to have a home, and also to understand what's the next level that they should go. So I basically started out with the building of a co-working space that then closed it. And in that experience, we put together the first pre-acceleration program for entrepreneurs. And from that point to now, a lot of things have happened. We have a bunch of other initiatives that from that moment on started out and have evolved into different platforms that help entrepreneurs with their with their investment or mentoring programs, etc. And on a personal level, I started out Pretty Busy Club, which is a platform for female entrepreneurs. We are like focused on female entrepreneurs and their businesses to help them scale, and also partnering with different companies to create programs for mentoring, and also to give them the guidance, the information, and to structure businesses that can actually scale. So that's kind of like I tried to sum it up like really briefly, but of course I could spend hours talking about this evolution, because in DR, I believe that a lot of people have been involved and have put their 50 cents into this bowl, so we could make this happen and feel great about what's happening in the art.
No, well said. And I am going to revisit that conversation around, even creating a co-working space. I mean, it's not easy to do that. And then to now, double down on really empowering women, because, women are usually powering a lot of ecosystem change. So I'm going to follow up on that, of course, in this panel dialogue. So Sydney, how is it going in VI? Tell us about what you're up to. Introduce yourself to the community.
Yeah, happy to be here again. Always good to see you, Christine. So I'm Sydney Paul. I am the Senior Manager of Business Intelligence and Marketing for the University of the Virgin Islands Research and Technology Park. It's a lot to say in one word. But basically what our organization does is attract technology and knowledge-based businesses to the Virgin Islands, because we're just like the rest of the Caribbean trying to build a tech hub in our space, because we understand that a lot of the challenges that we have, like Ms. Sudin was saying, can be supported by technology in a lot of different ways. So within that, our organization also does things to support building that tech hub outside of bringing businesses. We want to nurture and create tech businesses and tech startups here from the tons of talent that we have. So we have an entrepreneurship program called Accelerate VI. It's the first tech accelerator in the Virgin Islands. And in the past 3 years, Christine, we've done so much that I don't even know if I'll be able to talk about all of it. But our accelerator just finished its third cohort. We've had 21 startups go through it. We opened a co-working space this past summer, which is awesome. And then launched our job search platform for STEM talent in the Virgin Islands, and trying to get people back home, because we understand the same thing about, that brain drain that we're trying to reverse. So I support all of those things in a lot of different ways in my position. And I'm really excited for this conversation today, just because of how timely it is and a lot of the conversations we've been having here in the VI.
No, well said. And I think, both of you in your own way have either enabled startups, created the space for startups, or just like really even being entrepreneurs yourself, because you already have that innovative streak. And I think there's two things that came up in both of the dialogue is this need for talent, nurturing the tech talent in the community and building the space for that. And second, really inspiring people to like think about the Caribbean in a completely different way. Right. And so I want to go back to Luz and just hear, what is it about Pretty Busy Club, or even just your experience when you first kicked off the co-working space, was difficult? And why do you think that these spaces or this work that you're doing is so necessary, especially today, especially considering the pandemic that we're living in right now?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. The thing is that creating spaces where people can meet or put their talents into the service of the community or into the service of another business or another colleague, right, is it's really important to actually thrive a community and thrive an ecosystem to make things happen. So with the co-working space, the experience we got from that was we were the catalyst of many opportunities, many individuals, and many organizations that were trying to help entrepreneurs, but they didn't have like a space to collide, right? So as we created that first co-working space that was actually targeted to startups and tech community, um, it was the first time ever that Dominican Republic understood the word co-working space. So for us, it was really hard, and answering your first question, it was really hard for us to make people understand that this is what you're looking for. It's just that you don't know it yet. So we spent a lot of time and money and effort trying to make them understand that they needed a co-working space or a space to be together, right? To catalyze that energy and to make things happen together. I was hearing out the other panel, and Jorge was there as well. Jorge was my co-founder in that co-working space project. And so yeah, so we learned a lot with Pretty Busy Club. It's kind of like I took what I learned in the co-working space experience, um, and also put it together with the other necessity. A lot of women are thriving in the ecosystem of tech and entrepreneurship, and it's incredible to look back at 2013 and now, and in that moment you made a workshop or whatever event, and half of the people there were men, more than half, and now it's on the contrary, right? Now we have 60% of the participants are women, and that made me look at the ecosystem in a different way and say, hey, what's something that me as Luz Gonzalez, as the entrepreneur, as the mentor, and as a consultant can give back to this ecosystem that actually no one is doing it in my perspective, right? So Pretty Busy Club went with this idea of creating that space for women entrepreneurs to collide and to put together work, and to also understanding that we can do it and we can do it together, and we can build startups and we can build businesses that are scalable, that need funding, that can actually thrive, and that can actually grow and impact others.
Well said. And expanding on that, I want to take this to Sydney. You know, you guys have seen, like when it comes to the ecosystem, everyone's doing their part. I don't like when people say we don't have this in our country. Just because it doesn't have high visibility doesn't mean that people are not doing the boot camps, doing the co-working spaces, doing the events, doing the initiatives. So I usually try to avoid that type of opening remark, especially when it comes to the Caribbean, because we really disrespect the efforts of a lot of grassroots organizers when we say that. So with that said, with the work that you're doing right now in VI, right? You're on your third cohort and you just opened a co-working space. How are you also looking at what other people are doing? And to that point, do you think there's a change in mentality in diaspora coming back to VI or tapping into the community? Because now there's more visibility, seeing what the work that you've done in the past 3 years. Now there's no excuse to say it's not there. It's now, how do you tap in? What are you seeing?
That visibility point that you made and what Luce made is very, very true. And in my position as the marketing manager I realized that it wasn't that the talent wasn't here. And then that's another thing about talking about the brain drain too. We tend to say that a lot of our brightest have left, right? But there's also a lot of very talented people here, very bright people that are in the territory that maybe didn't have the resources to leave, but still have the all of these very creative, innovative ideas, but weren't exposed to the opportunities or the resources that they could have. The RT Park for us was one of those things that I realized that a lot of people didn't know about, and they didn't know how it could serve them, one, and two, how just the tech the tech sector, the tech ecosystem in general, like you said, Christine, you don't have to be a techie to really enter the space. A lot of young Virgin Islanders don't understand how that space is available to them, and they just didn't know that it was there. So doing that work now, we're seeing a lot of really fast progression, which is great, and a lot of interaction and people interested in what we're doing. In terms of learning from other places, what I've realized in having conversations with my peers from other islands, I was just talking about something very frustrating that was happening in the territory here in terms of our government and on Facebook. And one of my friends from Antigua said, wow, it's crazy that you guys are going through the same thing that we're going through, right? So taking that into consideration, what I've realized is that we definitely, of course, should be working together because all of us in the Caribbean have the same challenges. We're going through the same environmental challenges, the same challenges with resources, food security, all of those things. So collaboration is very important. And then also with our entrepreneurs, we try to tell them that you're not just working necessarily for your community. Of course, you're doing that. But what you're working on and the solutions you're working on are so not customized, but you're thinking of your culture and where you are. These things can be applied to the rest of the Caribbean, and there's success and scaling and all of those things, and just feeling connected to the rest of our sister islands. So I tend to encourage our entrepreneurs and those who are looking in the tech space here to look at what other islands are doing. For me, particularly in the ag sector, there's a lot going on. So we're going through the same thing, so we should definitely be talking to one another.
I love that you said that we need to look at our other sister islands, because I think so much we look at sometimes the wrong markets. And sometimes it's like, oh, we're looking at the US, oh, we're so far behind, and not looking at, some of the challenges and also the hallmarks of our region that's happening across. I mean, obviously from our position, I'm seeing what's happening in Haiti, Barbados, Jamaica, obviously VI, Dominican Republic, right? We're seeing a lot on our end. And I think, we need to really look regionally sometimes before looking globally, because there are advances. And I think if we have a pocket of collaboration, even if it is just cross-marketing each other, I think collaboration is a word that's thrown out so much, but we don't know how to apply it. But even just cross-amplification, I think that's something that we at GSC want to do more of, amplifying what's already out there, because I think that's like a fundamental thing that people skip over in terms of cross connections. So with that said, I want to have a conversation around time. Luz, I love the name of your company, your platform, Pretty Busy Club. And I think that it's funny. I mean, you're empowering women, but it's one of those things where, especially with this pandemic, time to really build your ecosystem, tap into your ecosystem, accelerate communities that matter, like women, right, that are doing great things. It's just like a fleeting concept now. Can you share with us, how are you inspiring your community to do better with their time, to really be effective, but more importantly, to be a great case study, a face, an inspiration, a hallmark, with what they're doing, how they spend their time. I would love to hear what you've been doing as an entrepreneur in this space.
Yeah, actually, our part of our marketing messages are being busy the right way, because we really believe that there's like a culture in this startup and tech world that you need to be busy all the time and to be productive, and we use those languages, and we don't we sometimes we forget that how we speak to each other and how we speak to ourselves but impacts the way we do and the way we live and the way we produce things, right? So we took that concept of being busy, and we are trying to to attract people that actually resonate with the Pretty Basic Club, and then kind of like brainwash them and tell them, hey, you know what, I know that you joined the Pretty Basic Club and that you're doing one of our mentoring programs and that you are being in this community and that you felt attracted to that pretty busy concept. But guess what we really believe is that you should be focusing on the things that actually impact your business and your life, and you should be focusing on having a business that is aligned to yourself, a business that is going to impact the environment, your country, and the world in the way that you are meant to inspire and you are meant to impact. So it's kind of like tricky because we as women, we have a lot of superpowers, and one of those superpowers is to try to do a lot of stuff at the same time, and that comes like really well to us, right? We are having the kids, we are having the family, we are doing our best job, we are building a business. Sometimes we have side hustles, and sometimes we have a bunch of stuff going on. But what happens when you sit down and try to build a business is that you need to be laser focused on the things that really matter, the things that actually move forward the business in the right way, in the right direction. That's why we have built a platform with the curated information, trying to let that noise out and just focusing on the real information that's gonna give you the questions, the reflections, and the outcome that really matters. So you were talking about the pandemic, and this is one of the things that we learned is that when the pandemic hit, we put out a program like a 3 masterclass, 2 hour per day. It was like 6 full hours of how to build a platform and how to do that step from offline to online and go digital. And it was like 1,000 people just connected just to understand that. And for us was amazing to see that, because it's people that are trying to emigrate from one place to another, people trying to connect with other countries, people trying to expand, people trying to impact more. And the way that you see yourself in the business, it replicates a lot in the results of your business itself.
Yeah, and with that said, I wanted to hear a little bit more also about see how you're enabling people by creating this masterclass. That's powerful. Like, getting people to go digital. I now also want to talk about the co-working space that you said that you launched and it's closed. Can you share a little bit more about you're sharing what you've done in the ecosystem, but how have the ecosystem helped you or supported you in building the co-working space, and what happened with that? Because I think again,
Yeah.
with places like DR, we hear so much about the fragmentation of the ecosystem and we look at the enablers, but are the enablers supported? So I just want to, if you could quickly just give us a point about what was that experience like building a co-working space in the Dominican Republic?
Yeah. First, I'm gonna say it was 2012,
Oh, wow.
so and 2013. So it's kind of like when you look back, you say there was nothing back then, right? Like we were a bunch of people trying to do different initiatives. We had Startup Weekend just started, and we were the team that were actually working to make a Startup Weekend going on here, and yeah. But here's the deal: like when we started saying that we wanted to build a co-working space, and when we started putting the word out, right, a lot of people came through and say, hey, if you want to do this, guys, like, don't worry, like, I have this person, I have that contact, I have this, I have that. And it was really beautiful to see how we were trying to build a space and everybody understood it was needed, and everybody put their effort, either like contacting with people or spreading the word or just being there for us. But at the same time, the one of the best thing that we made with the co-working space was that we put together the government initiatives, the private initiatives, and the corporate environment. We put it together with the individuals that were trying to help entrepreneurs. So those three players understood the importance of building the first pre-acceleration program, or starting just different type of events that were networking events, tech events, etc., hackathons, bootcamps, all of that. So we kind of like put the seed in the ecosystem, and we were open for almost 3 years. And when we closed, it was for me, it was like a breakthrough for the entire ecosystem, because by the end of that year there were like 4 other co-working spaces going on. The government bank just launched their also their entrepreneur program, acceleration program. So it was like a seed that we planted, and now Jorge, me, and Guillermo and Laura, the ones that we were involved in there, that we can see the results in other initiatives that started there. So yeah.
I will definitely want to follow up with you, because I think, like, these are the legends that we don't hear about, because obviously everyone's looking at the spaces that exist today. But definitely, I would love to follow up with you on that, because that seed inspired more, right? And just making sure that that is articulated when it comes to the ZRTIC ecosystem evolution, right? And, going to Sydney, you've been operating for 3 years now, right? Funny enough, the year that you kicked off, it was an amazing experience in VI. The past 2 years, we've been living in a pandemic, but you kept going, and I commend you for that, because it's not easy to keep going when you don't even know what's 22 going to look like. It's going to be live in person, or is it going to be virtual? So in looking at, you guys are now becoming a case study. Truly you are. Like, the work that you do at VI is really becoming a case study. What have you learned that ecosystems like Dominican Republic can leverage and tap into, because you guys also did a collision effect with the government, the university ecosystem, the private sector? Can you elaborate, I guess, the highs and lows of the journey of building this, and what we could take away from it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean,
Time.
there are highs and lows. I mean, for sure, in building anything. I tell people a lot that joining the RT Park. So just for a brief history, the RT Park itself was established in 2002. And then the team that I'm on now, our executive director, came on a couple months before me and basically built the team that we have here from scratch. And for me, it feels like we're our own startup, right? And we're still in startup mode. We're still launching programs, getting them stable so that we can move on to other projects. So there's a lot of highs and lows. The pandemic was very that was a big curveball, because that year we were just getting ready to do our second cohort. A part of that program for the Accelerate VI is to bring some of the founders here. So that program is not just for Virgin Islanders. We do focus more on Virgin Islanders, but it's open to people from anywhere. And we get other founders from other Caribbean islands, from the United States. So we want them to kind of immerse themselves in the experience here so that they can understand what we're trying to build and get excited about what's happening in the VI, and hopefully come and establish themselves here. But we couldn't do that because of the pandemic, and ended up doing that whole program, that second cohort, virtually. Usually we do a demo day where they pitch to investors. We did that in person for the first one. It had to be, on Zoom virtually for the second one. And it all worked out. I do think that some of the benefits of the pandemic did allow us to kind of reach farther in terms of who is seeing these startups that we're kind of showcasing to the world, right? So initially in our first cohort, we had investors, high net worth people, others from the community who came physically to see these startups pitch their businesses. With the second one, we were able to reach a lot more people just, outside of the territory. We were able to have mentors who maybe wouldn't have been able to come to the St. Croix to talk with them, do it from, their office in Google in New York, or, wherever they are at Microsoft. So those were the benefits of it. I do think that with this now hybrid kind of ecosystem that we're going into, and a lot of people call it the new normal, we're trying to be creative about how we reach people on the marketing side, and to get people involved, even though they may not physically be able to do it. Because like I said, there's a lot of people here who don't have the resources to be engaged in this stuff. Technology in many ways can make things more efficient and affordable, depending on how you look at it. And I think that we're going to use it. We're going to keep using it. But the pandemic was very interesting. We were getting ready to start a youth coding camp or a program that year. That was going to be a school year long program. And then the pandemic hit. All of the students were doing work from home. We had to quickly think about what we were going to do. So we did a summer program where they got that we got Chromebooks donated to them, so they were able to do the work that we wanted them to do at home. They were able to use those Chromebooks for their own schoolwork at home if they didn't have those resources, which was great. So we're trying to kind of build that out again. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have seen a lot of benefits from the pandemic. I try to look at opportunities rather than the challenges that we had, or frame those challenges as opportunities, and we've definitely kind of built out on that.
No, well said. And I think, I know we're coming up on closing the panel. And so I guess I'll start with, Lucia, to just hear, not just your concluding remarks, but what do you think is going to be next for the Dominican Republic? I mean, you participate Startup Weekend. You started a co-working space. Now you're doing the Pretty Busy Club and, enabling women. You have just been really building and empowering your community in the country. What's next for you? How do you feel like it's going to be the next tech hubs is DR going to be the next tech hub of the Caribbean, that everyone's going to be flocking to DR, or do we have a little bit more to go? Like, what does that look like, and where do you see yourself in it as history is being made down this path for DR?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that the previous panel, like, it was a really good, the tech DR mafia, right? That resonated with all of us, and yeah, I think that there's a lot of people doing great job building the next startup that hopefully is going to be the next unicorn. Why not? So we are like crossing our fingers and trying to create this space and the mentors and the finance and the investment to actually make that happen. And not just me. I think I'm speaking about everyone in the ecosystem trying to push that, right? But at the same time, I also think that there's a long way to go. I mean, it's an ecosystem that is still trying to walk, right? So we want to run and we want to fly, but we're still walking, right? So it's and that's okay. And I really believe that when you understand where you are, you can go further, and then you can understand where you're going, right? But if you don't know where you are, then there's no way that you're gonna get where you are going. So yeah. But on the same part, like as a personal level, I believe that the investment here in DR, the startups, the companies, and everything that is been developing here needs a little bit of understanding the entrepreneur, because I really think, and there's something that you said, that we all need to be together in this because we are running through the same issues and challenges and everything, and that's totally accurate. Because here's the deal: we don't think as people, we don't think the same way as the US market thinks. We don't think the same way as European things. It's not the way we see the world, we see our lives. So I truly believe that we have adopted the methodologies and the way to do business from the US and those big economies because, well, they were the ones that put it out there, right? And we're gathering all that information and trying to build businesses and build entrepreneurs in that way because that's the way we know, right? But what happens when we try to deconstruct that and try to build a methodology and a way to do businesses that is more aligned to our culture? Because right now, like right now, everyone is trying to build a unicorn or build a whatever, right? And not everyone is trying to understand how is this impacting our people, how is this impacting our entrepreneurs, this super like fast racing that we're all in it, like how does it contribute at the end of the day, right? So in a personal level, I'm attracted to working with the entrepreneur, working with those intentional businesses instead of the unicorns, those tech companies that are not rushing to get it done and get it out there, but are taking time to do quality jobs and to do quality tasks and to actually impact their team first, right? So that's the way I'm seeing the future for me and my contribution to the ecosystem.
So well said. The intentional business. I mean, Sydney, the question goes the same to you, but more importantly, because that you have the resource of the university, the ecosystem behind you. I know you guys have been around for 3 years. I can imagine 10, 20, 30 years, it's still going to be there, right? And so what do you envision is going to be next for UVI Park? And what do you see yourself? What are people going to say about Sydney and her involvement with this
Yeah.
program?
I just want to say that I totally resonated with what Luz was saying just now, in terms of how we tend to look outside for how to do business, how to support our entrepreneurs. And our culture, our history, all of those things is very different than other regions. But internally within our region, we can see a lot of ourselves in one another. And I think that that's where our focus should be in looking to, like you said, Christine, earlier on in the conversation, looking to other islands for that inspiration. So I just wanted to say that first. For the RT Park, man, I think that we're, very much focusing on that brain drain issue. So our job search platform is called Vista Plus. It's basically a database, right, of all of these Virgin Islanders across the world who are working in STEM. We're trying to bring them back home. That's a really crucial part of building that ecosystem. We can do the work here to, with coding programs and things like that, which is what we will do, adult programs, youth programs. But I think it's really important to try and bring people back home. Even if you do that at this point virtually, right? Because of the pandemic, you can still have people working and supporting, building what we're doing here, even though they can't be here necessarily right now. But the key part of that is just getting them involved and having them understand, wow, there's something going on back home, that I left because I couldn't find, and now it's home, and I'm nostalgic and I want to be home, and now I feel comfortable maybe making that transition. So the workforce development is very key. We're going to try and build out that platform. We launched it in June. We've gotten over 3,000 visits since then. A couple dozen people have registered. A lot of companies have registered and are putting jobs up. So that's going well. In terms of the Accelerator program, what we've talked about is encouraging more women founders. We noticed in our first two cohorts, there were more men who were, running the startups, and that's fine as long as, we're making sure that a lot of Virgin Islanders are getting the support. But we realized that just like in other parts of the world, especially in the United States, that the representation is not there. On top of the fact that you are a person of color, you are now, a woman, and that just makes it more difficult for you to have that visibility and support. So we're working on making sure that a lot of women in the territory in the Virgin Islands and our Virgin Islands diaspora know that this accelerator exists, and it's been working. So our last cohort, we had 5 of the 7 startups had women founders. Of the total amount of founders, 7 of the 12 founders were women. That, really was just a success story for me. And I think it's going to start building more and more. When I look at our data on people who are engaging with us online, more and more of them are women. And I think that that's a good thing. So we're going to just kind of keep that motivation and roll with that. Personally, like Luz said, there's all of these different ways to look at the entrepreneur life. We are a territory of the United States. However, I don't necessarily I connect with a lot of what the United States does in terms of the history, because we were taught that. But I resonate more with other Caribbean islands just because of the culture and that history, and growing up with all of the things that I do on the island. So I think of how you think of an entrepreneur differently than the hustle and bustle of what, that sort of capitalist running, you're doing all of these different things at the same time. I don't think that we have to do that. And I'm really excited because I have lots of ideas that I would like to get off the ground. And I want to be able to just, get it done, but have quality work. You don't necessarily have to compete with anybody else, because if you're really thinking about what your solution is, what should be more important is the impact that it's having on the community, and not necessarily you being the first one. And then the last thing I'll say about that I've had to tell myself too, that I tell other entrepreneurs, is that even though something exists in an ecosystem, so, maybe there's a food service delivery app in the United States, like Grubhub or Uber Eats or things like that. You may think, oh, well, that already exists. I shouldn't even do that because let me think of something like totally new. Not necessarily. Those types of tech companies are geared towards the markets that they're in, right? And serve them in the ways that those consumers want to. And we don't necessarily do that. We don't necessarily experience those things or want to experience those things in the same way. So you can create a food delivery app. We have a startup who actually is in this third cohort who created a food delivery app for the territory, which I think is going to go really well. And you can reinvent and make things more for your community. You don't have to necessarily be that unicorn that's thinking of something that's very, very new. So I'm working. That is my journey right now. I'm trying to start kickstart some stuff, but in the meantime, I'm just really grateful to be around the community that we have here because it's inspiring me, and I'm hoping that pushing them also pushes me. So we're gonna be still in startup mode here at the RT Park for some time, but it's all exciting stuff.
No, well said. And I think, there's something that you mentioned there about just like really looking at building something for your community, even if it's out there. And even if there's another startup that's doing exactly what you're doing in your country, no one company could do it all for the entire country. And that's a mindset I think us in the Caribbean that we need to revisit. Healthy competition as opposed to like stakeholder competition, because I think there's a perception that, once something is there, it's untouchable, right? We need multiple options, multiple ways, multiple authors, because even in America, we have multiple options. We should create that mentality in our own communities. But with that, I wish we had more time to continue, but of course, it was honestly a pleasure to have you ladies on today, to not only talk about the ecosystem of the future, but the opportunity for entrepreneurs and pioneers like both of you certainly are within your respective countries. Thank you so much. And we will be in touch in future editions of DR Tech Summit and of course across the Caribbean. Thank you so much, ladies. It was an honor to have both of you with me today.
Thank you.